welcome to Theater and Stream, a film podcast. I am Matt, that is Chuck. This is episode 69. Everybody's favorite number, 69. I can't think of a more inappropriate movie for our 69th featured review. And that movie that I am talking about, of course, is the sophomoric effort from the filmmaking team Raka Raka. It is Bring Her Back. Raka Raka, of course, the Philippou brothers, the duo that brought us the hit debut horror film Talk to Me. There's a lot to say about this movie. There's a lot to say about a bunch of other movies and TV shows. So we've kind of jettisoned the news this week. We're going full-on Watchlist. We're going right into our featured review after that. And then, as always, we're going to be ending the show with the Mentionables. Please do like, please do subscribe if you like what we're doing here on the channel. Chuck, anything else you wanted to mention before we got into things?
Yeah. These headphones are not a deliberate choice on my part. It's out of necessity that I'm borrowing November's kitty cat light up headset. I introduced Maggie last time around, and
Yes.
a couple nights ago, she was just wrestling around while I was at my computer, and she literally just bit my Acer whatever headphone, not Acer, my Razer headphones just once. I bought those things when we made the decision to do this show. They've served me so well. They probably would have served me forever, but now they are dead. She bit the cord one time, and that's all it took.
In the wrong place.
In the wrong place. It shorted it just enough that there's no life left in them. It is so frustrating and so sad, but it is just one of those things. So until I can take the time and find a good deal, for one that doesn't break the bank, because you want to know about inflation, dude. I bought that headset for $80 at Best Buy in Bismarck 4 years ago now. It's now $150 to get that exact same headset today. So that sucks. That's the world we live in. But now it's time to dig into this watch list here. And this next one up it's been a long time coming. So what can you tell us about John McLean's latest?
Yeah, so John McLean, he brought us the movie Slow West in 2015. A movie that I liked a lot. And in many ways, both these movies are very similar. They're both very deliberately paced neo-westerns. They plod along, but they occupy different subgenres. Where Slow West, it's kind of this bounty hunter story. There's farcical elements to it. Tornado is very serious. It's a samurai revenge story about this Japanese father and daughter duo. They find themselves in the late 1700s Scotland countryside. And they're kind of following around this band of traveling circus performers. And they put on this puppet show as part of that circus, but they sort of mistakenly catch the eye of this band of outlaws. And that's kind of where things go from there. But before I get into the actual review of the movie, one thing I wanted to say about this movie and Bring Her Back, is something I noticed when the film logos come up at the beginning, is that both these movies received significant funding from their respective governments. So in this movie's case, it's Screen Scotland, it's the BFI, the British Film Institute, and then for Bring Her Back, it's the South Australian Film Corp. And so I guess just props to both those governmental bodies for just choosing interesting movies, sometimes not so flattering movies to produce. And in the case of Tornado, I have no doubt that this movie probably wouldn't have been made if it wouldn't have gotten this funding. Because, like I said, this dude has not made a movie in 10 years, and I don't think that he would have gotten the funding to make this movie had, the government of Scotland not have stepped in. But the actual movie itself, the small budget, it definitely does show. There's a lot of characters just kind of running around the Scottish countryside. There's not much for backdrop other than just nature. And so, you can just go out in the Scottish countryside. It's beautiful. but it's free to film there. Or it's, I mean, you got to pay for filming permits, but it's all just free landscape. And so you can tell, he's using a lot of the Scottish countryside for his backdrop. And it's a lot of revisiting the same locations also. We go back to the same house or the same wagon, like 3 or 4 times during the course of the movie. And even then, it seems like this movie it's only 90 minutes long, and it seems like he's sort of padding the runtime a bit to kind of hit this arbitrary time limit. The trailer that is playing right now, and the one that I saw in theaters, it makes this movie seem sort of like an action movie, but it's really not. There are bursts of quick, very lethal violence, very like surgical violence, but it's really not an action film otherwise. And story wise, character wise, there really isn't much going on. This is the vibes movie. This is the if you're gonna see this movie, it's for the aesthetics. It's because you've got Yorgos Lanthimos' favorite DP on the movie, Robbie Ryan. He's on the camera, and you've got Jed Kurzel, the brother of Justin Kurzel, the director. He's the composer on this movie. He's doing the score, and he's got a lot of talent behind him. And so yeah, this thing just it oozes look and feel, but there's not really a ton going on under the hood. I think this was picked up by Shudder, I want to say. And so
Really?
yeah, it's not really a horror movie either. And so I don't know why they did that. I think they're kind of branching out a bit. They've branched out into the revenge genre a bit. They did Coralie Farragut's first movie, the woman who did gosh, what was that movie with Demi Moore recently that was released that everybody went gaga for?
The
The body
Substance?
horror movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, The Substance. Yeah, so Coralie Farragut's first movie was a revenge movie, literally called Revenge, I think.
Oh.
And that was a Shudder release also, and that is definitely not a horror movie either. So I think they're branching out a bit, but yeah, I mean, watch it when it comes to Shudder. It'll probably be on there by the end of the summer. Otherwise, you probably don't need to run out into the theater to see this thing. But yeah, it was fun. It was a good 90 minutes. I like this guy. I like John McClane, and I hope it doesn't take a decade for him to make his third
No
movie. But
shit. Like it's
yeah.
almost as bad as Shane Carruth, except I'm
Mhm.
sure it's less about his proclivities. Like in his way
Yeah.
he makes movies. Just like like Slow West created a literal genre called the
Mhm.
slow western for crying out loud. So he takes his time. But I appreciated your comment about just like publicly funded filmmaking in that regard,
Mhm.
because in North Dakota is just trying to get into it. Of course, it's replete with all of the Department of Commerce pork barrel, like borderline corrupt, like ways that they do it. Like a long time ago, I talked about the quote unquote scandal around that here in North Dakota,
Yes.
where
Mhm.
they didn't add like they didn't like give filmmakers any time to like really get something ready except for the people that they were targeting for it, and they also didn't clearly explain what they were looking for. And what they awarded were these like really boring, safe, you know, like basically just PR for the state kind of stories. Like we're gonna do the story of the Marquis de Moore in Medora, who founded the town that is a tourist trap. We're gonna make a movie about Hazel Minor, the little girl who saved her siblings during the children's blizzard that killed all those school children 100 years ago. Like that one I'm a little more interested in. However, there was also people trying to like pitch things like a pre like a or like like when like the white like traders and trappers first started showing up in North Dakota from the perspective of Native Americans. And it would have been a TV show that they would have tried to pitch to like Taylor Sheridan to like get onto Paramount. Like that would have been the intent. And that would have been crazy awesome. Would have given you like years worth of of like money coming into the state to film here for a production like that. And yeah, so like the fact that a movie like this and Bring Her Back are like what can be supported in other places, that's the example I wish North Dakota would take, because there's a lot more interesting ideas out there than just the greatest hits of the North Dakota stories we've heard forever ad nauseum. Like we need something different. And
Yeah,
speaking
definitely.
of something different, um, when the first season of the Rehearsal came out, I thought it was a one and done weird little experiment. Like, how could Nathan Fielder possibly come up with something new? Because like it was just such a complete and holistic project. It took his concept to its limits. And what he has done in season 2 is identify a problem in the real world and try and see if he can use his project that the Rehearsal is to address it. So, airline accidents have turned into a massive problem around the world, not just in the United States. And because he's just autistically fixated on crashes. And he came to the conclusion that it was because the pilot and the co pilot were having interpersonal communication problems. If one was making a mistake, the other would not call it out until it was way too late and they were crashing into the earth. You know what I mean? So, and he finds this guy who used to be the head of the NTSB for the people who do like the after action reports and do like the safety regulations for travel industries. And he had basically written a paper saying that that was the problem, and that there should be like this role play like simulation thing that is implemented so pilots can better communicate with each other and avoid things like this. And so that's what, and so it's tailor made for the Rehearsal. So he starts working like talking to people who are, airline pilots, observing them, during their day to day, and then trying to like find some ways to do like a little study through his show to kind of see if this could make some positive changes. And of course it like balloons so far out of like that concept into like a weird like talent, like a fake talent show. All these singers think they're auditioning for like an American Idol type show where the judges are airline pilots. And so they think it's the real deal. They don't realize who they're like working with, even though Nathan Fielder's walking around with his MacBook laptop, like chest carrier, typing away, watching everything. And it builds to the point where Nathan Fielder is like role playing as Sully Sullenberger and recreating his daily routine, trying to like turn himself into Sully Sullenberger so he can pass the simulation to recreate what he did. And it culminates in Nathan Fielder actually becoming a licensed commercial airline pilot and actually flying real flights with real passengers to
Okay.
like actual destinations. And it is so bizarre. But, like I guess it just proves my initial perception of this show wrong. He can make it about anything. And he's going to find something interesting to make it about. So, I really enjoyed it. It didn't drag like the first season did. Like eventually I just got kind of, I was like what do you where are we going with this, Nathan? This has a much more clear through line all the way to its conclusion.
Okay. Is because I've never seen, I don't think, anything that Nathan Fielder has done. And so is he still like, does he still occupy like the genre of comedy, or is he kind of like
You
trying to
could, yeah.
branch out now? Is he one of those guys who's sort of like forsaking the comedic stuff because he wants to be taken more seriously, or he wants to be seen as something more than, or like what is going on? Because I don't really understand like his
Yeah,
trajectory, I guess.
it's interesting because it's a tightrope walk. Like it is still kind of funny. Like he still elicits like yeah, but it's from like more so the realistic situations, quote unquote.
Mm,
Because the problem with this show is that you never quite know if what you are looking at and is being presented to you as real is, because there's so many moments where he'll show you something and then he'll pull back and be like, this whole thing was just a rehearsal. You know what I mean?
okay.
Like we have completely recreated this airport, and what you thought was like a real thing that happened in a real airport was not. And
Mm,
so like there's even like a sequence where he's like going before like a congressional committee, and you think it's like the actual congressional committee, and then it's just actors, who are just
okay.
preparing him to go before the real congressional committee. And there's all kinds of like weird absurdist moments too.
Okay.
Okay, I'll take care of that in a second. Yeah, it's out there, and it because he still tries to like be very serious, but then it's
Okay.
always couched in this, you don't know whether or not you're supposed to laugh, so you just do. Kind of.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uncomfortable laughter.
Yeah,
Yes.
like because there's a clip in this where like somebody is like on stilts, and like Nathan is like a baby in a crib
Mhm.
because he's literally trying to like recreate Sullenberger's entire life,
Okay.
the life experience of being raised by his parents, and like that's where it's like, oh my god, like what are you doing, man? But then the next episode is him like, I'm a real airline pilot. I've passed all the tests and certifications. I am flying a real plane with real people in it. Like that kind of thing.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds interesting. And what would you because he had that Comedy Central show, and then he had two
Yeah.
seasons of this,
Yeah,
and
Nathan For
then
You,
he
which
had
was much more definitely a comedy.
okay.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
he had the he also did The Curse, right?
Yeah.
The Emma Stone show. And so what do you think is like his the best of the best? Like if I were to only watch like one Nathan Fielder thing at this point, what do you think is kind of his best?
Nathan For You is like junk food. It's much more easily
Okay.
digestible. With The Curse and The Rehearsal, you kind of have to commit to it and
Sure.
and ride it out. Because like I did finish The Curse. It's the last episode of that was cuckoo bananas, but it kind of validated the whole experience just because of like how out there it got. And for my money, The Rehearsal is the best thing he does because it's so heightened, and he's exploring things that are like genuinely interesting and not just a fake Starbucks gag.
Mm.
Because like that's probably his most famous bit, is that he created like a pop-up fake Starbucks and created like a sensation, and then got
Hmm.
like a cease and desist from Starbucks saying like, you can't do this. But
Yeah, I
like,
remember
yeah.
that. It was like it was literally called Not Starbucks, right?
Yeah, yeah, or
Like that was the
whatever it
name of it.
was.
Yeah.
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 And but like in the rehearsal, in this season of The Rehearsal, there's a weird segue where he tries to like explain that Paramount Productions, who took down Nathan For You, are Nazis, like actual Nazis. Like he tried to make that case.
Yeah, so my next watch list entry is The Mountainhead. I was really looking forward to this. I consider myself a Jesse Armstrong fan, and he's kind of playing in a familiar wheelhouse here, one that he's been really successful in. This movie, it could very well be one of Succession's famous like bottle episodes where a bunch of rich people gather in a single location and things go bad from there, basically. But in this case, it's four like tech bro billionaires, and they've kind of gathered for their annual retreat where they all four of them get together and they sort of decide the fate of our country while mindlessly scrolling on their phones and eating cheeseburger sliders. And I don't think it's as successful as something like Succession, I guess. And I kind of had to interrogate myself as to why didn't it really work for me? Because it has all the ingredients, the The dialogue is often incredibly biting, like Armstrong's dialogue normally is. It's occasionally very funny, like Succession a lot of times is. But it often gets lost in like this like tech bro mumbo jumbo that almost as if Armstrong thinks that it lends authenticity to the show or to the movie based on, how many buzzwords he can cram in. And, it has four really, really great performances, too, but what it really comes down to is I just didn't care about any of these guys. Like they're pieces of shit from the word go, and they stay pieces of shit for the duration of the movie, and they leave even bigger pieces of shit. And Succession was always really great at having these morally gray or even like reprehensible characters that you still somehow, kind of root for because either they show like glimmers of humanity or because their very existence is just so tragic that you have to root for them. And he clearly wants of these four guys, Rami Youssef's character to be like that guy for this movie, but he still kind of sucks. He's still kind of a big piece of shit. And you only really feel bad for him because of the events of the latter half of the movie, which I won't spoil here, but things really, really go off the rails, like in the second half of this movie. But um, I still occasionally really liked a lot of the script writing. That's what Armstrong is good at. He should probably leave
When we're done, I can get you.
one of the things he did with Succession was he left the directing to other people and he just did the scripts. And
Yeah.
I think that he should probably do that going forward. There is a really, really great scene where they all climb to the top of a mountain and they perform this really, really weird ritual where they all write their net worth on their bare chests and then they basically just scream their deepest desires into the void as like some sort of weird like manifestation exercise. And so like there's scenes like that that are really great and the script writing is occasionally funny, but yeah, not much else going on here. A lot like Tornado, where except the exact opposite, where Tornado had the visuals, Tornado had um, the music, it had the vibes. This has the script writing and the comedy and the dialogue, but like not much else. And so yeah, just don't expect the rich characters and the long form storytelling of Succession because that's not what this is going to give you. So that's kind of where I'm actually kind of surprised you didn't watch this.
Just didn't have
What
the
did
time.
anything
It's on the watch
just didn't have
list.
the time? Okay,
Yeah.
sure, okay,
Like I alluded to,
but yeah,
my watch list has grown and I need to cut it down.
sure, yeah. This one you can stick it on your watch list, but I would recommend not don't put it at the top because it'll always be there. It'll always be on HBO, and so yeah, just watch on a boring Saturday or something like that.
Does that just kind of tell us that, he should stick to long form, novelistic storytelling versus feature filmmaking?
I think he should. Yeah, I really think he should because yeah, like I said, there's just not enough time for him to develop these characters in any way beyond caricatures. I mean, that's really what they are. They're all four of them are just caricatures, and for the most part, they're all the exact same person,
Yeah.
but just sort of like I think I described it in our doc as like this is a movie cast that is made up of four Lucas Matsons, the Alexander Skarsgård character from Succession. Like that is what these four guys are. And so, yeah, just know that going in.
It needs to be charged. I mean, not right now. Well, that's disappointing. But
Yeah.
I'm now far more interested in your next entry, Department
Yes, yeah.
Q.
Yeah, this is the series that crashed Netflix. Did you hear about that at all? I'm just
No,
curious. Yeah,
it
this
caused
is
like an actual IT problem.
yes. Netflix was down literally worldwide for about 2 hours last Saturday because of the
I'm
number
playing
of
with the
people
cord.
watching this show. And
Don't play
so
the cord. Okay.
it was kind of funny to see that I was among those people where I was in the middle of watching an episode of this show, and then it just like wouldn't show me the next episode. And so it was, yeah, a worldwide Netflix outage, which is not something you see a whole lot of. But I took a kind of a chance on this. It on the surface looks a little generic, looks like your typical BBC police procedural. But then I kind of dug
Luca,
deeper into, like
take that away from him.
what what is this show? Why is this so popular? Why is this a thing? And what I found out is this is based on a Danish book series, and the Danes have already adapted this series into 6 feature films, and they're gonna make more. So we're gonna have like sort of these dueling like adaptations going on. And so I kind of thought to myself, there has to be something here. And, I think I was really right. I mean, I blew through all 9 episodes last weekend. I would describe this as, equal parts slow horses, equal parts BBC Sherlock, and then even by like the end of the show, there's a little bit of True Detective thrown in there too. Um, and I guess just to give kind of the basic setup here, basically a police chief is given funding to create a division that is dedicated to solving prominent cold cases. I think it's Ireland. Um, to sort of improve, they want to improve the reputation of the police in the eyes of the public. And so, of course, what she does instead is she funnels all of the money for this team that she's supposed to make, and she funnels it into upgrades for the rest of the police station. And then she assigns the department, basically the biggest fuck up of the department, to this new division that is getting no funding. And this is
No, no.
really, really like edge of your seat watching. It has a great mystery that sustains itself for the duration of the show. The payoff to said mystery is really great. Um, one of the most interesting things, one of the most interesting locations that I've seen in like a detective show like this, where they are using a hyperbaric chamber to hold a kidnapped person hostage, but it also acts, in addition to her jail cell, it also acts as sort of like a torture chamber where they basically like increase the pressure inside of the chamber, slowly and slowly. And it's just one of the more interesting like things I've seen in a one of these like police procedurals. But yeah, this is just the type of show that one episode ends, you're gonna want to hit play on the next one. The lead, Matthew Good. Okay, the actor Matthew Good, he plays the lead of the show. I don't know what
Ozymandias
happened to this
himself.
guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I don't know what happened to this guy, but I last remember like seeing him as Ozymandias in the Watchmen movie, and then I feel like he's just like wallowed in obscurity, complete obscurity ever since. And he is fantastic as the lead of the show. And yeah, so I mean, just full sale recommendation. It's 9 episodes. You'll want to blow through right through them all. Just fantastic. I cannot wait for the inevitable second season that we're gonna get. I really want to go watch the movies now. I mean, I'm really tempted to just like, because when you had gotten up there,
Yeah.
I had mentioned that the Danish, they've already adapted this series of books that this is based on into 6 feature films. Like there are already 6 films about this character, about this world. And so I really want to just go like spoil it all for myself and go
Yeah.
watch like the Danish films, but I feel like the show won't have as much impact, and so I'm gonna hold off for now, unless they're like super super slow about getting the second season off the ground. But I somehow don't think they will be with how popular this has been, and so yeah, just full on recommendation. Incredible show.
Well, that's exciting. It's kind of a,
Yeah.
a girl with the dragon tattoo sort of situation, isn't it, though?
Yes,
Because
exactly.
by the time Hollywood got to it, the Swedes were done. Like they had completely
Yeah.
told the story in multiple forms. They did it as movies, and then they released these like director's cut, like versions of the movies as a mini series, which I didn't really quite like the pacing of. It was hard to get into. Just
Yeah.
called Millennium, I believe. But
Hmm.
yeah, no, that's exciting. And I'm looking forward to actually seeing it for myself. Um, Close out the watch list here. This is a little unorthodox. This isn't my review per se, but my wife Angie took our daughter November to see the live action Lilo and Stitch, and she had some very negative thoughts. November loved it, but she doesn't have a critical eye yet. She just liked seeing you know this movie we've watched a gazillion times, I guess in a different way. But I guess like right off the jump, it's like the main criticism Angie has is that it does what not only like Disney does, but just like anybody who's taking a well-loved and existing material, they make unnecessary changes to just like put their own stamp on it, or the mores have changed at Disney, so they can't just make it one to one. They don't want to do that. They want to make it stand on its own, obviously, but every single thing they did was to its detriment. um they got rid of like alien characters that like they were kind of like they're part of the fabric, and now they're gone, just like unceremoniously. They're not even a part of the story anymore. And since it's a live action movie, instead of like having like the aliens sent to get Stitch, like Joma and Pleakley, instead of having them just like wearing like really bad disguises to like look like tourists, they just have these like holographic like appearance changers, so they can have
They're just humans,
they're just
right?
humans. It's
They're just
so
humans.
you can
Yeah.
have Zach Galifianakis in your movie. Don't do that. That's not safe. And she hated Zach Galifianakis. Like all the like every like human like live action element that they brought into it to like that changed the source material. This did not hold up. It did not bring the charm that was present in the original. And like on top of that, like there's this the real controversial aspect is its ending, because in the original movie, like Stitch saves Lilo from getting grabbed by the Galactic Federation agent, and the supreme leader of the Galactic Federation comes to Earth to collect Stitch, and Stitch shows that he has changed, and he's not like he's soaked up goodness, and he's not just this aberration that needs to be destroyed. And she makes and Lilo's like, here, I paid for him, he is mine. And it's like, okay, well, he is yours and he's your responsibility, and I'm just gonna leave now, because Ohana, like we can't break up this family. The original ending, it's perfect. You don't fuck about with that. And because the central plot of this is CPS gonna take Lilo away from her sister, right?
Hmm.
And so they try and make that too real. Yeah, it's like by any
Hmm.
objective standard, probably should take Lilo away. And the movie introduces this plot element where the sister has foregone a like education on the mainland in marine biology, which makes no fucking sense. Because if there's like any place of higher education that has like premier marine biology, departments, it's on fucking Hawaii. Like
Yeah.
like why does she need to leave for the mainland? And ultimately the ending is, okay, yeah, Stitch can stay. Ohana means family, but we're going to give the sister Nani, the sister, like we're gonna take Lilo away, and you are now free to go get your higher education. Go do that. So Lilo is fostered by a neighbor that wasn't in the original movie, and Nani has a portal gun, so she can instantaneously go from her like apartment on the mainland to Lilo's bedroom, so they can still see each other every day. You know, it's like why introduce something so heavy and so contrary to like the central tenet and theme of this whole franchise, and
Yeah.
then just like have this like really cheap like MacGuffin to fix it all that's just introduced at the 11th hour. It's like they overcomplicated something that worked because it was simple, and they just made a lot of really bad, choices along the way in, I guess, transforming this into a live action story. Like, because like we watched this movie enough that I've internalized it, and I probably would have been like trying to run out of the theater had I been in there, because I just would have been so opposed to like every choice they were making.
Yeah, it's funny because I think when Lilo and Stitch the original came out, I was already in that phase. I would have been, I think, 13. So I was already in that phase where I was, too cool for
Yeah,
Disney movies. And
same.
so I saw it, I believe, but I didn't retain a whole lot of it. And but I understand sort of. I mean, I've seen the live action Aladdin, which is more my shit. That was when I
Yeah,
was a kid, and I've seen the live action Lion King, and so I understand now that like the millennials who were born like 3 or 4 years after we were are now getting into like the decimation of their childhood by
yeah.
live action Disney remakes, and so I
Live action
understand. And
Atlantis is coming. Get ready for it.
yeah, I did. I heard about that too. Yeah, that they like tease that in this movie. Is that right?
I guess I don't know for sure, but
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
I swear. Yeah. My wife was telling me about it. In this movie, in Lilo and Stitch, there is some sort of like tease for the live action Atlantis movie, even though they have nothing to do with each other. I don't know what the extent of the tease is,
is it just like
but
an after credit trailer?
I think so. I
Okay.
something like that. Or not even a trailer. I think like literally like they use this movie, like the characters of this movie, the framework of this movie to pitch basically a live action Atlantis movie. And even
Oh
though like
no.
I said they have nothing to do with each other, like the Atlantis universe is in no way connected to the Lilo and Stitch universe, or at least it wasn't. So either they were just being a little cheeky, a little too cheeky with their you know, connections, or Disney is pulling some real heinous shit where they're
Yeah.
gonna try and connect all of their like live action remakes going forward, which would just be a complete train wreck. And so I don't know what's going on with that, but that's all I know.
Yeah, that's some cinematic malpractice right there. That's a war crime
Yeah.
in the Hague of Charles Crane, basically.
Yeah.
So yeah, skip this one completely until it comes up on
Yeah.
Disney Plus. Other because this is an abomination that should not be. I think that the real Lilo and Stitch fans reacted appropriately based on what I've heard, and I will wait to watch it myself. I'm sorry that my household paid money, towards its box office. But
And
one,
speaking of cinematic war crimes, in other ways though, in other
in other
ways.
ways, oh, I see where you're
Yeah.
going with this.
Yeah.
Yeah, because now it's time to talk about our feature review this week. Bring her back. The Raka Raka ascendancy continues. From my point of view, the Philippou brothers, really knocked it out of the park with the debut. Like that, Talk to Me still holds up. I revisited
Yes.
it recently, and to me, as a sophomore effort, this movie really. No, you have to stay in the apartment, okay? Because I don't want Luca going out there with you. I'm a supervisor. No, you can't. You're too little. You just need to stay in the house where I can get to you guys. He's getting into too much trouble. Okay? I gotta wrap this up, okay? We're not gonna talk about it. It's just how it is. You do your tricks in here, and then when we're done, we can go in the hallway. Okay? all together.
So
Yeah,
I can practice going really fast.
exactly. Yeah, that'd be fine. Okay.
And jumping high.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like the whole thing when I'm on it.
You want to learn how to do an ollie? Okay. Yeah, but I need to finish this, so I need as little interruptions as possible, okay? All right. We're gonna reset.
All right.
So yeah,
Yeah.
the Rocka Rocka boys, the Philippou brothers, are back, and the ascension continues. In my opinion, with Bring Her Back. I revisited Talk to Me recently. Like they knocked it out of the park with that one. It still holds up, and they show a lot of, like, I would say, growth. They still kind of have to have a signature, like, loud, like, dubstep, like, party sequence. They still, like, slip that in here, somehow, but it all makes sense. And what I didn't realize going into this, because I avoided spoilers like the plague, just because I knew that they were rampant, and I just wanted to get, like, a pure experience with this, is that it is a part of a genre I didn't know, like, had a name called the Psycho Biddy. Like, kind of,
Okay.
based on, I don't know why you have a thumbs down showing up on your screen.
Oh, I have no idea what.
But kind of, like, inspired by, like, whatever happened to Baby Jane, where you just have, like, a creepy, like, witchy old lady. And in this movie, that is Sally Hawkins' character, who is a foster mom from hell, like, like, in the most literal sense, because like, because, like, the way this movie begins is so shocking. With
Daddy, can I change the color?
No, not right now. Like, with this, like early edgy internet, like, live leak video footage of, like, a weird cult ritual, and you're given, like, no explanation for it. It's like what is the origins and source of this? Like we get even less context than we do for the gypsy's hand from Talk to Me here. It's like, it's never explained with words. They do show, don't tell, almost egregiously. It's like, I like it and I appreciate it. It's effective, when you're laying the groundwork. But at some point, you got to have someone actually lay out, like, why what is happening is happening. Because, like, this movie owes a lot to Hereditary in that regard, just about these characters trapped in something like a ritual that they don't realize. But at some point, somebody, like, picks up a book and says, this is something that's happening to us, and we don't really quite get that. It's like, we just get these weird situations where someone's watching a tape and we get snippets of it, I guess, that way. But yeah, the central story, are these, step siblings whose father dies, and they get thrust into what they believe is going to be a temporary situation until the elder brother, turns 18 and he can apply for guardianship of his blind, stepsister. But unfortunately, they're with Sally Hawkins and her weird, like, mute nephew named, like, Ollie. Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And what follows is almost an endurance test. I had people leave the theater while I was watching this. There's a few sequences that, like, even, like, made me, like, jump in recoil, where I was like, oh my God, what is happening? Like, we're not actually seeing this, are we? And these two guys really embrace, like, doing the Quentin Tarantino chop off the audience's head. They do it, like, 2 or 3 times in this movie, where, like, people, like, had their gut check and realized, this isn't for me. But I'm really, sorry that they didn't stick it out, because, yeah, like, this doesn't necessarily scare. This is just like you kind of also, said, I had the same sentiments. Like, in the doc, you put this in there. But it is so sad. It is so tragic. Its conclusion is so tragic. And there's even, discourse around this movie asking the question of, well, is the ritual even real? Like, could this all just be just like a crazy lady trying to bring her daughter back to life? But I would hate that interpretation. And I feel like what plays out kind of shows that no, this is real. And if we believe that Talk to Me and Bring Her Back take place in the same universe, that most certainly the supernatural explanation is not only possible, it is what is going on. We have to at least have, like the willingness to embrace something heightened happening. And I really, really liked this. I liked it more than Talk to Me. I know that there's parts of it that are maybe a little underbaked, but overall, like I am embracing this new millennial Gen Z Australian new wave that these guys represent, and I want more of it. And I just pray that, because like they made this instead of a Street Fighter movie, and we are so fucking lucky that that's what happened, because like they would be so lost in a world of franchises and corporate meddling. They need the freedom to just be themselves, because I can't get enough of it, and everyone should fucking see this.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm on a similar wavelength. This is true like A24 flavored horror is what I would call it, where this is not jump scares, this is not slashers, this is not ghosts. This is like the horror of the existential reality of mortality, and horror in the sense of how fragile the human psyche could be. And just you go for the Russian live leak videos, you stay for the bleak rumination on the finality of death, basically, is what it comes down to. And but I think, yeah, I mean, I think it's missing a little bit of something for me. And I'm willing to give this particular movie the benefit of the doubt. I don't know if I necessarily call it a negative thing. I think it just comes down to the subjectivity of personal taste. And for me, when I pit this against something like Talk to Me, I feel as if the Philippines, they've traded like a little bit of clarity for an emotional gut punch. They want it to be more emotional than Talk to Me was. And Talk to Me felt very high concept, a right amount of ambiguity on one side, you have world building on the other, and there is enough connective tissue between those two things for you to be able to infer certain things. And there are certain things in this movie that feel ambiguous to the point of almost being half baked, is what I would call it.
Mm-hmm.
Specifically with elements related to the ritual. But again, I don't necessarily call it a negative. I just think it's kind of personal taste. I wouldn't count it against the movie necessarily, because this is a big swing. I think it mostly connects, and it has to be acknowledged for how big of a swing it is. And we're seeing the real-time ascent of two of the most exciting people in horror filmmaking, I think. And so it's really exciting to see this all play out. And yeah, I loved it. I love the whole concept. I really think the Philippines they are students of the seedy parts of the 2000s internet, like I was, going on websites like rotten.com and like hardflip, and like just like watching like really, when you're a teenager, when you're a piece of shit teenager, those things don't affect you as much, and you don't really understand, sort of the impact of what you are watching when you are watching, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it really reminds me of videos, stuff like that, both real and made up, stuff like marble hornets, and like just like really like faked homunculus videos from like the early 2000s internet. Just like the weird stuff that you will find. And so I loved it for, stuff like that. And I wanted more of that. I wanted to know what is going on. And, I'm sure we'll talk about that, theories, different theories that we both have. But yeah, I don't know. Where would you like to go from here? Do you want to talk about that or the movie itself or what?
Let's talk a little bit about the movie itself. Like, what
Yeah.
really, I guess, differentiates this one
Can we be done?
from Talk to Me is the like once we get to this house, we really don't experience the outside world.
Daddy.
Like they are in like a
Mhm.
little pocket universe once they walk through that white chalk line around the house. And the gaslighting that goes on is like you are privy to it basically from the start. Like
Yeah.
like like you
Daddy.
we are not done. Stop asking.
It's
Like
very hard to watch.
it's very hard to watch. Like the moment where she's peeing into that measuring cup, I was like, what the hell is going on? But but then like from the jump, it is very clear this woman should not have the custody of any children. Especially when like after the funeral, she just like starts letting like a 12-year-old do whiskey shots until she's like blacked out. Like the because like the Australia does have like more permissive, like your relationships with alcohol within a household. I guess it's much like rural North Dakota where it's like, oh yeah, you're 16, 17, have a beer. Like as long as I'm here and I can control the situation, I'm comfortable with you getting a little pissed. But like when that was going on, I was just like, this just feels so wrong. And then everything just started feeling more and more wrong, as it progressed. Like locking that boy, like, and why they didn't think anything of it. Like, why isn't Ollie coming with us? Why are you just locking him in his room? Like that just felt like not the right thing to have happen. And I don't know.
Yeah, like the kissing
Yeah, kissing the
when
corpse.
she like makes him
Yeah.
kiss the corpse, and yeah, just like the weird like spiking the pre-workout and the Axe body spray, like
Yeah.
giving him the Axe body spray so that he smells like she smells when she literally punches a child in the face as hard as she can. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm glad that they didn't get too preoccupied with him like constantly going to like social services and being like, we need help. Like another movie would have really dragged it out. But like they introduced that, at the right time, and they concluded that aspect very quickly and appropriately. As far as that goes, like with that lady coming to the house. Because like I just kept on like waiting. It's like when is the outside world gonna get brought into this? And it doesn't basically until the final act.
Yeah.
And like the actors themselves, like all three kids are amazing. The boy playing
Yes.
Ollie, holy shit. Like that on top of like the really horrific things that he has to do to himself, he just had such a solid deadened performance where like there was no inconsistencies. I know he didn't have much emoting to do, but he just held that air and that vibe that was just so unsettling throughout it. Yeah, and like that takes a lot of work, for any actor to do. There's just no breaking of that illusion. And the sister, like the I'm assuming a real blind girl, just because
Yes.
it was so natural. Like the way that she would touch everything to like figure out where she was, because she didn't like using her cane. And even the older brother, like I mean, he didn't leave me wanting, and he didn't annoy me, which typically would happen with a teenager in a horror movie made in Hollywood. Like you had nothing but, I guess, sympathy for him throughout. And then Sally Hawkins, worth the price of admission alone, just on her own, just unhinged and utterly committed all the way through as well.
Yeah, I mean she's so good because I mean it is kind of a breaking typecast for her, and it's not only hard to watch like we already mentioned because of the gaslighting, because of what she's doing to these children, but because it's almost like her performance makes you want to jump out of your skin because of the stuff she's doing, the like invasion of privacy, the when she tries to look at his phone and she's like Yeah. So Oliver's a fucking weirdo then, huh? And the yeah, like the respect my fucking privacy, and just like the when she fakes, getting beat up by
Mm-hmm.
Andy, and yeah,
Yeah.
it's just like, and even like the oh god, the one line that really stuck with me was, you know, the just the bluntness, the sort of matter of factness when she's like, "I'm gonna drown you in the pool now, love,"
Yeah.
and then she just
Yeah.
starts drowning her, and it or takes her out there, and yeah, it's just she is great in this movie, just
Well,
amazing.
and that's an aspect of it that I think they used very well. Is the blindness of the sister, where she just kind of has to trust other people and what they
Mhm.
tell her is occurring. She can't discern it herself. And yeah, there are times where her brother does lie to her, obviously.
Yep.
And and having that be exposed destroys her trust in him. But the moment, though, like the first inkling she gets that Sally Hawkins is lying to her, about like the boy having red curly hair, that
Yeah.
like
Mhm.
she's just like, oh fuck, like what else has she been lying to me, about? Like that's really what breaks it open. And yeah.
I love all that stuff with the, because I didn't really put two and two together. I thought that, when we see that footage from like the pool party,
Yeah.
um, the VHS footage of the pool party, she calls that one boy Oliver, and so I was like, wait a minute, so was Oliver like a is Oliver actually her nephew? But it's not. It's
Yeah.
Oliver. Oliver is her real life nephew who has, the red curly hair, but she's calling this boy Oliver because it gives her basically an excuse to like have this kid at her house all the time. When she does have to interact with the outside world. It basically gives her excuse, like, oh, this is my nephew. This is my nephew Oliver, even though her nephew Oliver is not even a character in the movie for the
Yeah.
most part. He's just seen in that video. So yeah, that was very interesting. And that's what I love about this movie, and it's just the small things like that and the small bits of lore that we do get, because it's that's what I love
Hey
about a
November,
lot of horror movies. I'm
could you
more
grab
I'm
Lucas's
more of a
bottle for
lover
one bit?
of the
It's on the
example that
chair.
I gave in our doc was a movie like The Empty Man, where that
Mm-hmm.
movie is just steeped in its own lore. And so yeah, I have some questions, and I want to know, and I don't think these are questions that necessarily have answers, but I want to know your theories
Yeah.
on these, as far as like, I mean, we got to talk about the tapes themselves. Where do they come from? How did Laura get her hands on them? And is this actually a cult? Are these just elaborate scammers that, are selling these tapes online for like thousands of dollars to like prey on the bereaved? What is
Yeah.
going on with these tapes?
Because much like in Talk to Me, like the whole thing with the arm of a gypsy woman, it could just be like a Ouija
Yeah.
board. It's like everybody is
Mhm.
just kind of like hypnotizing themselves into believing that something supernatural is occurring. And these tapes could just be elaborate hoaxes. Just, like really, like this was just like some, burgeoning filmmakers, like viral, like pitch to like show off their skills, like whatever it may be. And because like all those kinds of things were so prevalent in the early internet. But God, from the first shot of this movie, like being like a naked man walking into like a salt circle and putting his hand on like a I don't know, like I'm not sure how old that person was, but like you almost think, oh my God, are we seeing a snuff film, being created, that kind of a thing. But like that's what they show us, the video being made, and then they show the product being watched. And it's like I want to believe that no, like this is a real ritual. This is like something real that is just being circulated within this world, where it's very much like our reality, but it's where all of these dark fucked up things that can be found on the internet are real and genuine and true, and can be incorporated into your life if you want to resurrect the soul of a loved one in someone else's body. This is the completely unhinged and bizarre method you have to go through to make it happen.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, no,
yeah,
I totally agree. I think if it's not real in the actual tape, it is for certain real when Sally Hawkins is doing everything, because there's just things that are happening that shouldn't be happening, like everything with Oliver and how he's like growing like tumors on his head, and his stomach is like
because
distending,
he's
and
gorging on
like
food. Yeah,
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 and like just like there's stuff happening, and I think the thing that sets it over the edge, the thing that tells you this is actually happening, is the voices. I mean, the voices are,
yeah.
that is the thing that 100% this is happening. This is supernatural events. These are happening because I didn't quite. I mean, I understood, sort of the logistics of it, in that when he consumes something, he can essentially mimic the voice, or in the case of the cat, he can make cat noises. And they do some great visual
Stop that.
storytelling there at the end, where when you see Andy's body, you see that he is missing fingers, and he has clearly been chowed down on by Oliver. And so yeah, I mean, of course, this is all definitely happening. All these supernatural things are taking place in the actual like confines of the house, and yeah, I found
Hey,
that very
November.
very
Where's
interesting with
Luca?
the visual storytelling they
November.
were doing there. And
Can you
um,
go find him?
one of the things though that I have to know your opinion on, that is sort of, there's a lot of debate online about this, about how Andy and Piper's father died, because I don't know why I got the thumbs down again, but
Yeah.
but there's a lot of debate about this, because Wikipedia, and I know Wikipedia can be edited by anybody, but Wikipedia says that he died of complications from chemotherapy, which I don't remember ever being mentioned. I could be wrong
No.
on that. Other people seem to think Laura killed them, because during that hospital scene, she literally, like, while she's gaslighting him again, she says, something to the effect of, "Your dad died in the shower and I killed him." And then some people think Ollie killed him because of the reoccurring image of boiling water in the movie. And then when you see the dead dad at the beginning, he has sort of, his injuries are something to the effect of scalding water injuries, like skin bubbling, skin,
Have
getting,
you found him, honey?
burns
November.
and stuff like that from water, from scalding water.
Where's
And
Luca?
so, um, yeah, that was really, really interesting, I thought. Do you have any theory as to what is actually happening, or maybe something I missed, as to what is going on there? Who killed the father?
Well, because like my first thought was that he had a drug overdose or like a
Okay.
stroke or something. And
Yeah.
yeah, like I don't know, because I have to, because like yeah, it begs the question, because we get no like inkling of this, but like maybe she was stalking, like she targeted this family because she wanted to recreate her daughter, body and soul, as it were, by finding another blind girl,
Hmm.
you know, and like that would make sense, that like she targeted them, knew they were vulnerable because she worked in social services for 20 years. She knew how to game the system, and like basically set the whole scenario up so that she would become their foster parent and get them right where she wanted them. Like it's never, yeah, like you don't know if you can trust what she just kind of like slips in there just to fuck with him, but like that, honestly, like that's what I figure is going on. And
Yeah, that's
yeah,
kind of what I was
because
thinking too. She either killed him herself, but I don't know how she would have done that without, leaving, unless she did like drug him, or like basically sent Oliver to
yeah,
kill him, which that doesn't make sense because he has to stay within the circle, I guess. But
yeah, I don't know that
um
that's necessarily feasible. because as soon as he
Yeah,
leaves the
yeah.
circle, the angel leaves his body.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess that doesn't really quite square out unless he can somehow like boil water from a distance. Because yeah, I thought that the boiling water reoccurring sort of motif is really interesting. That they sort of it's almost like a red herring, I guess, in that circumstance. Then, um, but yeah, they're very, very, very interesting. And
Because you turned it
the
off.
other, I guess, the other big
Go turn it
question
off.
that I have
If you be a bit
is like towards the end of the
turn off
movie,
the shower.
you know,
Go turn it
as
off.
Piper is being drowned, the way that she basically gets away is she says mom. And then her saying mom sort of makes Laura sort of break from her, either makes her feel incredibly bad or makes her sort of break from her murderous tendency. But I'm curious to know, do you think she says mom as a survival tactic, or is she saying mom because it actually sort of like the ritual basically temporarily worked and she essentially becomes like temporarily possessed by the daughter, but then it sort of breaks once she stops being drowned. What do you think's going on there?
I feel like it's a survival mechanism, but then
Okay.
like I like your interpretation of it basically being her daughter telling her to stop. No, honey, you gotta stop interrupting me. Like,
Yeah, because
yeah,
up until that point, up until that point, the rituals seems to be working. And so, I don't know, I almost took it as like the daughter sort of temporarily took over, said mom, but then as soon as Piper stops drowning, it sort of breaks the
yeah,
ritual
yeah.
essentially.
Like
Yeah.
her soul doesn't leave her body and making it a open vest because if she had succeeded in killing Piper, the next step in the ritual would have been Ollie vomiting the soul
Yeah.
into her mouth. Yeah, because so glad we didn't have to see that again. Because
Yeah.
because what a that aspect of it though, the gore, some critics really haven't been down with that from what I've seen.
Mm.
But that's partly what I feel is it's part of its Australian heritage. Like the Australian new wave was replete with like really fucked up like video nasty shit. And
Yeah. Yeah,
like
Wolf Creek. Yeah.
well, and even earlier than that, like in like the 70s and the 80s, they pushed boundaries, and kind of like British horror did in that time. And so it makes sense for it to like really push the limits of what an audience can endure. And this one certainly does that. Like when Ollie's like eating the face off the dead daughter in the freezer, or like God, like that.
The
Like,
knife eating.
the knife. Oh God, like we have
Yeah.
the when he's eating the countertop or like the tabletop.
Yeah.
Like I looked away because I was like, I can't just keep watching this. But they don't break. They don't give you an out. It's like you're watching all of this shit go down. And God, like if I had been the brother, when the knife event happened, I would have called the police then and there. I would have been
Oh
like,
yeah.
"You're not going to take this boy to a hospital? Like, are you kidding?" I would have grabbed my sister because he had a car. Like, just get the fuck out of there, dude. Like that's where I was at. But
So I'm guessing that was the knife eating scene when the walkouts happened in your
yeah,
theater?
and then
Is that okay? That's what.
and then the countertop scene was the other. I
Okay.
think people could handle the cadaverous, cannibalism better because it was just so outlandish, but
Yeah.
everything else just felt too real otherwise.
Yeah. I mean, I'll give people the benefit of the doubt. I'll give them props. In my theater, there was probably about 10 other people, I would say, and everybody stayed. But the one thing I did notice was there was like two like 20 something year old girls who were clearly on like a girls night, girls dates, and they clearly did not enjoy the movie because they nobody made a peep, but the second the lights came up, one of the girls just turns to the other and goes, "Well, that was fucking stupid." And it was so hilarious. It was it was so hilarious, and yeah, they clearly did not know what they were in for. They wanted the slasher movie. They wanted the jump scares, and I don't think they knew what they were getting into. And so that was pretty fun to watch. But yes, it was incredibly. Yeah, I'm not normally bothered by things like gore, but those scenes definitely bothered me. I think it really comes down to the sound effects.
Mm.
The chew, you can literally hear the metal of the knife, like basically ripping his teeth out of his mouth, or like chomping down
Yeah,
on his
hearing the
teeth.
teeth
And
shatter on the
yeah,
tabletop, it was just like, ah, yeah,
yeah. So that was rough.
they
And
killed it. Yeah,
yeah, and they killed it with the uh vehicular homicide too. I was not
yes,
expecting that. That was,
yes.
yeah.
Well, and just how like that lady's body was destroyed. Like the work that they did on like the corpses in this just mwah, just
Mhm.
it could not be better. But like if anything, the most brutal scene, like the most brutal like moment in all of this is actually when the brother is just his head is just pushed into a puddle and he's drowned. that
Yeah.
that hit me harder than all the rest of it, because I
Yeah, and
did.
he's just dead.
He's
I
just
mean,
dead. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, props to them for doing that. It was, you know, it's you didn't expect it to happen, and you didn't expect it to stick. Had this been a shittier movie, what happens instead is that, oh, he doesn't actually drown, and he was just, he
Faking.
just passed out,
Yeah.
or he was faking it, and he comes in at the last second and he saves Piper, the brother. He hits Sally Hawkins on the back of the head with a shovel or something, and he saves his sister. But nope, he's just no plot armor. He is just dead, and he stays dead. And so, yeah, very ballsy thing to do.
They're committed to consequences. Just like in
Mhm.
Talk to Me. There's no easy out. Like the awful thing can't be undone. Like what can be saved, and that's it. And yeah, big props to them for being willing to, you kind of, yeah, like he's like an emotional gut punch. Like they
Mhm.
really go for that, it seems like.
Yeah.
um
Uh,
let's see here.
What do you think about? I'm curious what you think about the ending, because if there is, I mean, other than the gore, of course, which is sending people out of the theaters, the thing that actually seems to be the most divisive is the ending. And the Philippines, I was reading a lot of interviews with them, and they said they planned for the ending to be bigger and scarier, as they termed it. But then the death of a close friend, who is the guy the movie is dedicated to at the end, basically made them opt for an ending that is more what they call true to life. And so, um, with how crazy the movie gets, at points, with how sort of balls to the wall it is, do you think the ending sort of betrays the feeling of the rest of the movie? Like, do you think it should have had a crazier finale, or do you think it fits?
it I wish I didn't know what, the fact you just shared, because
Oh, sure.
I was happy with the ending. I felt it like, because like Sally Hawkins had to, like, like her little redemption was in not
Mhm.
following the whole thing through. She'd already killed two people. She had kidnapped and brutalized a boy. Like, she's an irredeemable psycho biddy. You know, and like the one thing she could do is just not actually take her well laid plan all the way to the end. And just accept her punishment, whatever it may be. And just finally, because if because like she says it in the movie, it's like how did you? She's asked, how did you deal with Kathy dying, and her answer is like, I didn't. And this movie
Yeah.
is her finally accepting loss, essentially. And and it's something that, yeah, we all struggle with. We all go through different processes when it comes to that sort of thing. But, for her, it was just ghoulish and evil. And the one thing she could do is just let go at long last. So I,
Mhm.
I, like, it landed for me, but I want to know what they didn't do now. I want to know what we didn't get. Because, because you can't top the ending of Hereditary. That is like Mount Rushmore of modern horror moments.
Yeah.
And this feels, yes, a little softer and safer, and it's a little more abrupt, and kind of, and it closes the loose ends a little more cleanly, and in a way that doesn't really bring the whole thing to fruition, in that regard. So yeah, like I want to know what they didn't do. Was there like a, like, did the, like, and this is now my theory, when she doesn't kill Piper and she lets her go, that Ollie, like the demon, and Ollie finally just like breaks out of him, breaks free of the flesh puppet and comes after her, but then it can't go beyond the circle or something to that effect. And there's like one last little sequence, like it's like Alien Romulus, where there's just like, oh, here's the next form of the terror here. And maybe that would have been what they did. But golly,
You want to know what I think?
what's that?
Because here's kind of, I don't have this isn't a fully formed thought, but so I think that Andy dying and the way that he dies by drowning is too convenient for me. It's too, because that is the way in which you have to transfer the soul. You have to kill the person in a similar way in which the original person died. That's why, she has to drown Piper. That's why at the very beginning we see that person being strung up in the VHS tape, because
Yeah,
clearly the person was hung or committed suicide by hanging. So you have to kill the vessel person in the same way that the original person died. And so why then does Andy drown? Well, it's because the original idea for the ending was that Andy's soul, because Ollie consumes him by eating the fingers, we see that he eats Andy's fingers, and
in
we
his
we
face
hear him
too. Yeah,
yeah, in his face. We hear Ollie use Andy's voice. And so I think that the original ending had something to do with Andy's soul somehow going into
Pi-
somebody's body. I don't know whose,
oh man,
but because
that would have been
it's too,
twisted.
yeah, it would have been so fucked up, but that it would have, it's just too convenient. Like, why does Andy die by drowning? Why doesn't he just get hit by the car also? Or why doesn't he get stabbed? Why doesn't, why, any number of things. And so it just feels sort of like leftovers of it feels like leftovers of the original ending, essentially, is kind of my
I could
theory,
see
my
that.
working theory.
I like
So,
your
yeah.
idea a lot more than mine. And it's more in keeping with kind of what they did in Talk to Me as well. It's like where like the protagonist winds up, you know, suffering ultimately the fate of like what they've stumbled into. And like
Yeah.
I imagine like maybe the cops could have shown up or something, and then Ollie regurgitated him, into, like a guy that drowned in the pool in a struggle or something.
Yeah,
That could have been
it's
so
it's not,
interesting.
yeah, it could have been so just insane, but yeah, I mean, I've to go back to my original point, I do agree with you. I think the ending is fine. I think it's true to the Sally Hawkins character. It kind of closes her loop, because we do get some, every one of these characters does get some sort of closure, as far as, Piper sees the plane flying overhead, which is, or I shouldn't say sees, because she doesn't see it, she
She
hears
hears
it,
it.
um,
Yeah.
which is what he tells her at the beginning, it's a person's soul going to heaven. And then Ollie gets a bit of closure. I mean, we don't see what happens to him, but
Yeah.
we see that he is at the very least, he is physically okay. I mean, he's going to be a damaged little boy, but he is he is back in his body, and he is, asking for help, and
The
so he is
nightmare is
presumably
over.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, the nightmare is over, and so hopefully he doesn't remember anything that happened. But yeah, I do think the ending is true to the Sally Hawkins character, and so yeah, I liked it. And so yeah, I mean, anything else you wanted to mention
I just
about the movie,
well,
or
I guess maybe we could dig into like one last little bit because you have it on here is like
yeah,
what does grapefruit mean?
yes, yeah. Yeah,
And
we don't quite know. I mean, it's some sort of code word, but the meaning seems to change over the course of the movie. But,
yeah, because like either it means it's like you can trust me, I'm not just softening reality for you. You're like I'm telling you the truth, or it's like I'm serious, I'm in danger. Because yeah, because like these are kids from a damaged home, like they've like one of them suffered abuse, and he's doing his best to protect his sister from being harmed herself by the outside world. And yeah, they would kind of need to have their own way of communicating themselves, but
mhm.
god, it took me a little bit to pick up on what was going on whenever they said that.
Yeah, yeah, it was sort of confusing the first time. I was like, Did I hear that right?" But some code word, yeah, and like you said, it's something they would need, especially with her being blind in that kind of home. But yeah, uh, very awesome. I mean, I'm sure this will we'll probably be talking about this one again at the end of the year, and want to see where the Philippines go from here.
Ah, Marvel,
Um,
stay the fuck away from these boys. Stay the
yeah,
fuck away.
God,
Like
I hope so.
like
The only thing, I mean, as of right now, they claim that they are making a documentary about deathmatch wrestling, which could be cool.
what is
Um,
deathmatch wrestling?
like just hardcore wrestling,
Oh,
basically.
okay, okay. Like backyard
Like really,
wrestling.
really, yeah,
Yeah,
backyard wrestling. Really, really hardcore. Like using lots of props like
lots
thumbtacks
of
and
blood.
staplers, and
Yeah,
yeah. So, but something I didn't know about is that Talk to Me Too, which I guess is going to be called Talk to Me, the number
yeah,
two, is officially in the works,
almost.
and it's the only thing on their IMDb page right now. So that is probably gonna. I mean, it is official, so I could go for that. I could see that definitely. As long as, like you said, they stay away from the Marvel machine.
Because like I will be charitable, to them in that a Street Fighter movie from them probably would be pretty cool. It'd be better
Yeah,
than the other two we've gotten in the last 30 years. But I just want more for these boys. They're so
yeah,
incredibly talented. They have such a
the back on the bathtub and he's
yeah.
there
They're
there.
just a
okay. They're
talent,
just a
and
talent. They could do so much more than just currying slop, for the masses. They should give them something more, even if it's a quote unquote fucking waste of time.
yeah,
like that one lady said.
yeah.
Looking forward to it. Support this
Mhm.
film. Give them a reason to stay in their wheelhouse and not, just become, beholden to the white slavers of the world. Moving on to the
Mhm.
mentionables. I couldn't get like I found this like 15-minute long trailer from the Summerfest because there just was so many things in there. I couldn't include it
Yeah.
all. But what was your takeaway from the announcements? Like, yeah, what got you the most excited?
Yeah, I think I talk about this every year, but I want to reiterate it's Summer Game Fest season, aka not E3 season, aka Jeff Keighley's quinceanera. Um, so I watched the whole thing, and I love just watching all these game trailers. I love the stage show of it all. It's really the only thing that they do other than the Game Awards in the winter. It's the only other thing they do anymore within the video game space that's like this big production event. And yeah, just a couple of takeaways from me, some favorites that I'm looking forward to. Of course, Resident Evil 9 was revealed. That was kind of they did a bait and switch with that one where the director of the game came out earlier in the show and said, like, you guys have to wait a little bit longer for Resident Evil 9. We're not ready to reveal it yet.
And then they do.
And then they revealed it. Yeah, and then they do. And so that was great. And but yeah, other than that, Mina the Hollower is a game that is coming out from the makers of Shovel Knight. It looks like a 2D Zelda game, like in the vein of Link's Awakening. Looks fantastic, absolutely fantastic. And then Atomic Heart 2, which had probably the best actual trailer of the show. Did you ever play Atomic Heart?
I did on Game Pass back, a few years ago.
Yeah, same. And Atomic Heart 2 was Atomic Heart 1 was a really good proof of concept, I thought. And, a little janky, not quite fully formed, but Atomic Heart 2, what it looks like to me is it looks like they're following the similar trajectory of like CD Projekt Red, where between The Witcher 2 and 3, where they had this massive leap in like quality and like production, and that is kind of what looks like is going on here, where Atomic Heart 2 is just going to blow everything up. It's going to be bigger, it's going to be more ambitious, it's going to be their Witcher 3. And so that's sort of what the feeling I get from it. And so yeah, really looking forward to that. But yeah, go check out all the Summer Game Fest trailers if you haven't. It's always really fun to watch. I love watching it every year, and so yeah, that is my mentionable. And there's still stuff going on too. This whole weekend, there's like a Microsoft show. There's like an indie game show. So yeah, the festivities continue.
And from what I hear, Microsoft will not be revealing a mobile Xbox. They have completely ceded that marketplace to Steam and OEMs, because like there are like Windows based like Steam Deck equivalents, and they're basically just content to just turn themselves into the Netflix of gaming at this rate, I suppose. And because I was looking forward to that, I wanted to see what kind of hardware was going to be coming out, but these games look pretty. There's a lot coming out that I thought that the industry was kind of hollowing out, but by the looks of it, there's still a lot of intriguing stuff happening.
Yeah.
So I have been wasting a lot of my time over the last couple weeks keeping up with the. It started with like the Ethan Klein H3H3 versus Hassan versus IDubbbz drama, but it has exploded into the complete ruination of IDubbbz. Hang on, honey, I'm almost done. And Creator Clash, because back in the day, I had Angie had on a lark bought the pay-per-view for the first Creator Clash, which was just like a internet celebrity boxing thing, with the outright statement that all proceeds would go to charity. And so a lot of people supported it because of that, and it made over $1 million. What was not known but had to be disclosed because of the complete fallout from because for some reason IDubbbz made do you ever watch Content Cop back in the day when he was doing that?
Yes, yeah, I've seen it.
So he did a Content Cop on Ethan, but he did it with the participation of like all of the Hassan breadtube like anti-Zionist brigade of characters from Twitch who have like instigated CPS calls on Ethan Klein and his wife to try and get their kids taken away, and just been unbelievably like maliciously hostile to these people because this is all about a blood war in the desert, and he made this Content Cop about that. And by extension, the content cop completely alienated people from not only fighting on the card, like Harley Morenstein from Epic Mealtime, who is Jewish and didn't like the idea of another failed, event, because Creator Clash 2 lost money and they had to have like a follow-up fundraiser just so they could tokenly donate something to charity. And that was a disaster. They took a year off, and then he just nuked his own event going in so that he could make his friend Hassan Piker happy. And so like people started dropping from the card left and right. No one was, because they also split the charity aspect, so it was a Tiltify donation thing, and functionally Creator Clash 3 was a for-profit boxing event, just like something that the Paul brothers would do, or like Happy Punch would do. And suddenly people did realize this is not worth my money. If I want to give to charity, I should just give to charity and not support this guy who's a has-been and is completely lost in the sauce that is his marriage and whatever he's getting out of his therapy sessions. So it's like, I'm way too deep in this. I know way too much. My opinion of this man has completely cratered, and I'm not the only one who feels that way. But Nicholas Diorio on like YouTube has been just pumping out the content. He does like 8-hour long live streams reacting to stuff and discussing things. And then he'll chop them up into like 2.5-hour long segments to like, explore them individually, because he privates his live streams afterwards. But that guy has been on the case from the beginning, basically. And what was revealed most recently, this is just the cherry on top that I'll leave you with, is that IDubbbz and his wife were taking like a 38% cut of the proceeds before fighters were paid,
Yikes.
before anything was donated to charity. It was a for-profit event for them from the beginning. And that only came out because they like divested from the project to stop damaging it further. And now Ego Raptor and a few other people now like own it. And they're going to try and reboot Creator Clash 3 as Creator Clash LA. That's going to be happening later this year. But I don't see why anyone would want to pay to see this if it doesn't have a genuine charity aspect. Like, there were people working for free on this, and like his boxing trainer, you went on Ethan Klein's show the other day and just spilled tea for like 4 straight hours. And like, there's no fucking coming back from this. And if you like internet drama, this is like the Super Bowl of internet drama, and I've been enjoying it.
Yeah, I vaguely know about this only because I used to like watch IDubbbz videos, but he did seem like he was basically like neutered. Like his stuff is just not like hard hitting anymore, and he barely even does it anymore in the first place.
Exactly.
So
yeah,
it's just very neutered and like very blasé and I've never really followed Ethan Klein, at least since like
Vape Nation,
Vape Nation. Yeah, Vape Nation. But God, that guy just seems like a mess of a person too. Also very, very like neutered. Like all of his stuff has become very like just blah. You know, like no real like good takes on things. Nothing like controversial at all. Nothing. He's just kind of a NPC basically.
Yeah. And the only thing that's like changed for him is that he's all these people that he like tried to cultivate friendships with completely turned on him because he wasn't full-throatedly opposed to his wife's home nation, existing, and I don't want to get into the weeds on that, but yeah, like he has redeemed himself somewhat in that he's been more willing to actually view certain characters in the proper light and address things. But yeah, it's fascinating from an anthropological setting.
I
But
bet,
on that
yeah.
note, I have a screaming child. I got to deal with
Yeah.
something. Please watch Bring
Yeah.
Her Back. We'll see you
Mhm.
in a couple weeks when we review 28 years later. It's been a long time coming for that movie. And we have been looking forward to it even before it was announced. We knew it was coming. It had to be coming. So thank you for joining us, and see you all next week.
Yep. See ya.